Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series Rescue the Rockies. And we are finally ready to get the off-season underway. Spent the last couple episodes taking a look at our roster from last season and preparing for the upcoming off-season, and then reviewing our farm system as well as some of the other interesting prospects around baseball. But it's finally time to start doing the work of hopefully positioning this team to compete for another title next year. Wanted to follow up to start, though, on one particular comment I made last episode. Noted that the lower levels of our minor league system all of a sudden were outperforming ridiculously. And I noted that the teams still looked like they had full rosters, but the quality of the players on our opponents outside of their top handful of prospects at most levels seemed low. And Cole Holland let me know that there has been an update to some of the minor league AI about promotions of players that seems to be causing some problems. I haven't honestly, over the last month or two, paid all that close attention to the new releases of the game and the updates and the patches. But I'm guessing that is the primary reason for the symptoms that we are experiencing. Hopefully it'll be something that gets addressed soon, because you'd think I'd love it that our lower level minor league teams were winning at such a ridiculous rate, but I'd rather have them face some real competition and have things be somewhat realistic in a world where I am the general manager of the Colorado Rockies. And the second thing that I'd like to address, and this isn't as much a housekeeping item, is really getting the episode going, is what our strategy is going to be for this off-season. You can see that we've got the potential to return most of our team next year. The key subtractions that we would potentially be having are lefty relievers Luke Little and Wellington Herrera, and we've made offers to both of them already to try to bring them back. And then Dylan Jordan, who was our third starter last year, but he was so bad as our third starter that he eventually got demoted, not just to fourth or fifth starter, but out of the rotation entirely into a long and middle relief role. Had a rough year, and he is looking for really big money for next season, $22.5 million a year for 3 years, and he's proven to me, based on his performance and his loss of stamina following a significant injury a year ago, that he's not a starter at this point. And when I look at his ratings, even if maybe the stuff might perform a little better in a small sample size as a reliever, he's not a $22.5 million reliever for me. So we'll be moving on from Dylan Jordan, and that leaves us with a couple question marks. Infielder Cody Schreier and relief pitcher Justin Gibson. Gibson, in particular, has been a very important player for us for the last 5 or 6 years. Schreier has been a useful player over the last season and a half since we picked him up from Philadelphia. So as I think about what to do, it's ultimately, do we want to be heading into the free agent period with a bit more money? And I guess a key concern when I think about what the upcoming free agents potentially look like is that when we think about the pitchers who are available outside of Colin Quintanilla, Justin Gibson is as good as anybody out there. And then we start thinking about the batters who are going to be available, and we've got a hole in our infield, or not really necessarily a hole. I feel like with Ryan Stone at first, Dervi Mahez at second, Ezekiel Tovar at short, Rosnile DePaula at third, And then the youngster, Mr. Kaysen, as a utility infielder, probably starting against left-handed pitching for us. We don't necessarily need a star, but we need a useful infielder. Patrick DeBonis has brought up that Dervy Mahez is fragile, Ezekiel Tovar is wrecked, and we might be overestimating the strength of our infield a bit. And I think that's a fair point as far as the health. We still also have a team option at this point on Bryce Rayner for next year, but he's wrecked and in his 30s, even though he's not going to be making a ton of money. Probably not the type of guy at this point that we want as a sixth infielder for us. When we look at the potential guys out there, Tyson Lewis would certainly be a nice addition. The bat is solid, the speed is great, versatile defensive player. But he's making $43.5 million this year. Looks like he signed a 2-year extension 2 years ago, and is the top free agent on the market, along with Bobby Witt Jr. among infielders. I think both of those guys are going to be looking for very significant money. Start looking at some other infielders. Edwin Arroyo is a second baseman. Love the glove, but he's in his 30s. He's fragile physically. Probably going to be looking for pretty good money. Luke Dickerson is a guy that we thought about before the trade deadline, but fragile. He's now in his 30s, has some personality quirks, and probably looking for decent money as well. Aiden Miller, another guy, fragile, in his 30s, going to be looking for decent money. And then we get to our guy, Cody Schreier, in his 30s like those other guys, but he's at least normal in terms of his injury proneness. He was great for us when we first got him in 2034, right before the trade deadline. Not quite as good this year, but still an above-average player. So if I think about saving money to set ourselves up for free agency, when I look at the class out there, it's really hoping that there's a international free agent that's potentially transformative to this roster that we'd be able to afford to get and want to get. There's certainly some odds that there's a player like that on the market, but no guarantees that it's going to happen. When we think about Justin Gibson, the plan from the Worldwide Scouting Department is pretty clear. The likes of Ravenspawn 3, Scott Donovan, YME943, Undercover Boomer all suggest giving him a qualifying offer. Maybe we bring him back for 1 year, but we're not making a long commitment. And if he leaves, we get a draft pick compensation in return, which would be nice. Patrick DeBonis not high on bringing Justin Gibson back. Alkshy also kind of a no, but recognizes in his comment most recently that the pool of other options isn't necessarily all that impressive. And when I think about Cody Schreier and what he's looking for and the rest of the infielders that are potentially available, I think there's an argument to consider bringing Schreier back. But what it ultimately came down to me when I made the decision that I'm going to make that I don't think will be too popular is we've won 3 World Series in a row. We've won 4 of the last 5 World Series. And we're basically getting to bring most of that team back, and most of that team is in their early, mid, late 20s with just a few 30-year-old guys around. Unless there's an international free agent, the free agent class this year is unlikely to have a true impact player. So what I've decided to do, and again, I know this is not going to be popular, I'm trying to bring Cody Schreier back as our sixth infielder. And I'm going to make an offer to Justin Gibson, or I have already made an offer to Justin Gibson, which some of you probably noticed if you were looking closely when we were on the front office screen, that all of the money that we previously had available is now tied up. Again, the theory is we've won 3 straight World Series with this club. We're basically just losing Dylan Jordan off of it, which we're happy to do. We don't think that there's going to likely be free agents who, in terms of their cost and ability, are more attractive for what we need than Schreier and Gibson. So I'm going to try to lock them up alongside Herrera and Little, and we're likely to be heading into the beginning of free agency with little money and little financial flexibility, which probably makes this offseason potentially somewhat boring. But I think it's the right move if we can front load those contracts a bit and not make any big commitments. Schreier's willing to consider an offer that basically goes year to year. Gibson, unfortunately, wanted at least 4 years and was insistent on a player option at the end. But we can potentially get him for less than the $19.5 million a year over 4 years that he was currently looking for, with a structure that I think works decently for us. So we have, at this point, made offers to Schreier, as you can see, in addition to Little and Herrera, trying to bring back a bunch of our minor leaguers as well. We've got some arbitration offers out there also. Gibson, we've ultimately offered $67 million over 4 years. Have made an offer to the youngster Josh Joss, who's got a 7 ERA in his limited sample size in the majors as a reliever, to be with us for a good chunk of time. And then we'll try to bring Rich Hannon back as well. But ultimately that's going to leave us with very little money. If there is a great 26-year-old infielder coming over from Cuba, or there is a brilliant 28-year-old starting pitcher coming over from Japan as international free agents in a few weeks, could definitely be second-guessing this decision. But at this point, my theory is if it's not broke, why try to fix it? Everyone else is chasing us. And it's not like we have a team filled with guys in their 30s that should be significantly worse on balance this upcoming season than they were this past season. Most of our team is in its prime right now. Let's try to keep that team that's won 3 in a row together. And the die has officially been cast. Started getting players signed today, Cody Schreier among them. So we'll take a look at that contract, as I noted. Slightly front-loaded, $10 million this upcoming season. Potential team options for 9 and 8 the 2 years after that. So it's not a long-term commitment. Does give us a little bit more insurance if we're to lose Ezekiel Tovar after this season, which is certainly possible depending on how much money he's looking for. Schreier gives us a guy with normal injury proneness. I mentioned we've now got him in Trent Kaysen as utility infielders essentially for next year. Hopefully strengthens that position for us. Starting to get some minor league players signed. Rosnile DePaula signs his arbitration offer. Fan interest supposedly increases noticeably. We'll check on that. We were at 99. Ted Miller signs his arbitration offer. Noticeable increase there. And then Justin Gibson has inked that deal, which I think will probably not be the most popular move that I've ever made. The fans, slight interest in that. Ultimately, we've given him $22 million for this upcoming year and a front-loaded contract, $15 a year for up to 3 years after that, although there's a player option for the other season. I totally appreciate the thoughts on the qualifying offer. If he had accepted the qualifying offer, we'd have him for next year at less than that $22 million. If he didn't accept the qualifying offer and we chose not to go after him, on the free agent market, we'd get compensatory pick and return. I tend to think if he hit the free agent market, he'd be more costly than he was asking for right now. And my thought is I'd rather take the bird in hand. We've got the money to spend right now. He has, as we've talked about, been a incredibly important reliever to us over the last 5 years, leading the league in holds every year, leading the league in games pitched 4 straight years. He's averaged over 30 shutdowns a season for us while pitching 80, 85, 90 plus innings for us. Definitely more than I prefer to pay for a reliever, but he's a guy who should be in the prime of his career, never had a significant injury, not all that injury prone, and we'll see if we can continue to get some performance out of him going forward. Also got Rich Hannon signed. We're trying to get a couple of pitching coaches signed, but struggling with that right now. But clearly that means we've done most of what we're going to do this offseason, and even with those guys being signed, fan interest still at 99, so it seems like it's probably capped about there right now, even though supposedly there was a lot of excitement about several of those signings. So with Gibson and Schreier wrapped up or locked up for next year and possibly beyond, we've signed the other arbitration-eligible players. We're not making an offer to the lefty reliever Dave Seibrecht, and we're just waiting on the other lefty relievers, Herrera and Little. We declined our option on Bryce Rayner, obviously not making an offer to Dylan Jordan, and given the number of pitchers that we're bringing back and some of the guys we have who aren't too far away that are younger in our organization, also going to be moving on from Iverson Castellano at this point as well. Certainly no need to offer any of these players a qualifying offer. Pretty sure any of them would accept that. So with some of the big decisions made, now it's a matter of seeing what happens in awards season and whether or not there is a big international free agent available in the draft or available on free agency. It would be trickier for us to bring somebody on board with those commitments that we just made, but certainly if there's someone we totally fall in love with that would be a revolutionary player for the franchise, there's always the trade market to try to open up some additional capacity if the dream candidate does end up showing up in a few weeks. Right now, the big question is whether Leo Martinez will win a second straight Cy Young Award and whether Mr. Roberts Jr. will win a third MVP in the last 4 seasons. And we've now gotten the lefty relievers Luke Little and Wellington Herrera signed as well. Gold Glove awards announced today for a second consecutive year. Anthony Pack Jr. wins the Gold Glove in center field. He's been outstanding for us defensively since we picked him up. Below average offensive player, but still with his speed, stole 50 bases this year in 55 attempts. And his outstanding defense has been a 3.5 to 5 win player for us in the 2 seasons that we've had him. And we've simmed forward another couple days to the Silver Slugger Awards. 2 Silver Sluggers this year for the Rockies. One perhaps a bit of a surprise, one no surprise at all. I'd say the surprising one is Derby Mahez, was named an All-Star for the first time this year, but he did tail off in the second half of the season. Still ended up having a really nice year with a 126 WRC plus, 22 homers, 72 ribbies, stole 27 bases, 36 doubles and triples combined, scored almost 90 runs, and he wins the Silver Slugger for third base. In the least surprising news, Kevin Roberts Jr., who we're expecting to be hopefully winning a third MVP award in 4 years, has now won the second Silver Slugger award of his career in right field this year. No shock to see that after a year when he led the league in slugging, OPS, WRC plus, and batter WAR, while hitting over 300 with 38 homers and 110 ribbies. And some good news today as we're moving forward. Adonis Valer, our closer, who missed most of the year with an injury, should be back to about 100% in 4 months, about 8 weeks ahead of schedule. So the great news is that he's likely to be able to participate in spring training, and if all goes well, make the 26-man roster for the beginning of the year. Certainly thought that was in jeopardy, or not even just in jeopardy. It was pretty unrealistic before, but good that he is recovering from that torn rotator cuff well, and looking forward to getting Valer back at the end of our bullpen. And if you were wondering, we decided not to change anything with the development lab. Could definitely have gone in a lot of different directions, definitely a little more focused on players who are already in the majors this point than perhaps we'd like to be. Unfortunately, things not going pretty well thus far. Chris Kennedy, Phil Dingwell, and David Guadrone are all struggling. Dandy Joss, Dervy Mahez, Leo Martinez, and Kevin Roberts are all frustrated with their programs. Only the young infielder, Johnny Castillo, is excelling thus far with his Generate Bat Speed program. And in news that will be even less surprising than the likely Cy Young Award for Martinez and MVP for Roberts Jr., Toby Staveland once again named the National League Manager of the Year. Since we brought him on board at the start of our first full season with the Rockies in 2026, all he has done is lead us to the playoffs 10 consecutive years, won 4 of the last 5 World Series at this point, and he has now won 6 consecutive National League Manager of the Year awards. And I think the final contract we have outstanding finally was signed. That's the young reliever, Josh Joss, 10-year extension for $25 million. So if he ends up being a pretty solid reliever for us, we'll definitely be saving some money in those out years, although we're going to be paying him more than the major league minimum the next few years. As I noted, he was not great in his introduction to the majors this year with an ERA of over 7, over 16 2/3 innings pitched. But when we look at his skill set, I think he could be a pretty interesting right-handed reliever for us out of the pen. We are working on his stamina in the Hail Mary that perhaps we could even turn him into a 4 or 5 inning starter. But I'm not necessarily expecting that to go all that well in terms of really stretching him out materially. And the other news today, of course, is in the least expected news ever. Leo Martinez was your unanimous National League Cy Young Award winner. His teammate Noah Schultz finished 5th in the voting. But Martinez, there was no question he was going to win back-to-back Cy Young Awards after leading the National League with 21 wins, 215 innings pitched, a 2.13 ERA, a brilliant 0.87 whip. Also led the league in homers per 9, strikeout to walk ratio, quality start percentage, FIP minus, and pitcher WAR. And many of those statistical categories, he led the league for a second consecutive year. And so really happy to have him on board, and we'll see if we can make him even more durable this offseason with the strength and conditioning program that he's working on. And as expected, Kevin Roberts Jr. has now won 3 of the last 4 National League MVP awards. The only perhaps shock was that he was not a unanimous winner of it. His teammate, Leo Martinez, although he finished 3rd in the voting, actually got 3 first-place votes. Tyson Lewis, the infielder that we talked about earlier, finished second in the voting. So again, we're expecting him to be looking for a very big number come free agency, which means he's probably not a guy that would have been a realistic play for us. And with our players having won the Cy Young Award and the MVP Award, we'll check in on what happened in the American League. 4 different pitchers got first place votes for the AL Cy Young Award, including Paul Skeens, who joined the Red Sox this year, Carlos Camarillo of the Twins, Travis Lurig of the Blue Jays, but Sergio Morales of the Los Angeles A's, 29-year-old, 14-10 record with a 3.42 ERA, struck out 224 batters, had a 1.07 WHIP, put up a 5.9 WAR overall, and the former third-round draft pick. Never been an All-Star before, but he now is a Cy Young Award winner. Over in the American League, Angel Valdez and Mike Higham split the 30 votes. 60% of them going to Valdez of the Guardians, 40% of them going to Higham of the Astros. Higham with the Astros, the second baseman, led the league with a 387 on-base percentage. Other than that, hit 285, 30 homers, 70 ribbies, and also looks like he is a pretty good defensive infielder, switch hitter. Won the AL Silver Slugger this year for the Astros, but your MVP, Angel Valdez, the center fielder for the Cleveland Guardians, led the league in OPS, led the league in batter WAR, put up a 154 WRC plus while hitting over 300 with 29 homers and 150 runs batted in. And we've made it to the start of free agency, generally seeing the names that we expected to see, Tyson Lewis, Bobby Witt Jr., and Colin Quintanilla among the top position players and pitchers available on the market this year. Jordan Woods, the 32-year-old, still recovering from shoulder inflammation, is considered to be the top starting pitcher on the market. But the question is ultimately, are there any international free agents that are true impact makers that we may have made it much more difficult for us to potentially acquire with the fact that we brought back Gibson and Schreier before we got to free agency? It doesn't really look like there's a big-time pitcher out there. Catcher Yasuhiro Kajihara has a profile I hate with the inability to make contact and an insane number of strikeouts. We also don't really need help at catcher. Does look like there's a number of infielders here. Second baseman Jose Gonzaba, 22-year-old, has some personality quirks, and another guy who's going to strike out a ton and struggle to make contact. But the gap power, home run power look potentially exceptional for him. He's a pretty interesting 22-year-old prospect. We're certainly going to request a scouting report on him. Also looks like he might just be looking for a minor league deal. We'll offer him a minor league deal right now just to get the conversation going. Not a perfect candidate, but with him not looking for crazy money, could be an interesting option to consider. Shortstop Felix Lona, another relatively young guy, 23 years old. Looks like an interesting prospect. We'll continue scouting him up. It looks like he's already been signed to the Houston Astros organization, so we didn't get an opportunity there, unfortunately. 1-year minor league contract, so Lona could have been interesting. I mean, Danny Bernal, first baseman, modestly interesting, but he's certainly not taking over for Ryan Stone as first baseman for us. So ultimately, it doesn't seem like there was a true impact international free agent available. So makes me feel even a little better about doing what we did. Tyson Lewis is expected, looking for over $40 million a year. Now, we could have just afforded that if we hadn't brought back both Gibson and Schreier. But I think at $40 million, even though he's coming off of a fantastic season, Lewis is going to be 30 before next year starts. And how many years is he looking for? 10 years, over $400 million. Certainly can get him for less than that, I would think. But as expected, he's looking for big money. Bobby Witt Jr. looking for 5 years at almost $29 million a year. Luke Dickerson looking for $12.8 million. We talked about him earlier. Aiden Miller, $13.6 million. Edwin Arroyo, $15 million. I'm not going to lie, I don't hate Cody Schreier at $10 million for this year, and then team options at $9 and $8 for the 2 years after this. When I look at the rest of the market, we'll see what the pitchers are looking for at this point. And Colin Quintanilla looking for over $29 million a year. 7 years at over $29 million a year for a closer. Again, I think Justin Gibson's demand would have been higher if we hadn't signed him when we did. But we've got him for an average of less than $17 million a year for the next 4 years. He's also not fragile like Quintanilla. I don't hate what we did. Appreciate that there will be other opinions on the topic, most likely. But I kind of feel with Schreier back as a utility infielder, Gibson back as an important arm for our bullpen, and the fact that we did make that trade for Bell to take over as our third starter, I feel like the team is already a little better with Bell on it rather than Jordan. And with the fact that we signed some arbitration eligible players for less than they were looking for, we moved on from some guys who were arbitration eligible, cut some other guys off the 40-man roster. When all is said and done, we've got a little bit of money to spend. Not enough to get one of these top end players, but we certainly can add some additional talent this offseason if we decide that's the right thing to do. But honestly, right now we're also in a situation where there aren't a ton of roster spots up for grabs on our team, so probably will be somewhat circumspect about any money that we offer this offseason. And with that, we will call it an episode. Next time around, we're going to continue simming through this offseason, hopefully sim through the Rule 5 draft, and then all the way up to the international free agent signing period, which we've been scouting heavily over the last several weeks. And the hopes is that we may be able to add a future impact player there. And we'll certainly be looking forward to hopefully some thoughts from the Worldwide Scouting Department after the next episode when we take a look at who's available. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.